I think I see Charles.
Good evening.
Some serious feedback.
Who's that? What's going on?
It's Joe.
That's so sweet.
Yeah.
Okay.
Kelly's in. That's sugary drink.
Yeah, that make it interesting.
Okay, are we on? All right, great. All right, we'll call the Thursday, August 19th, 2021 Vernon Township Board of Education work session to order. Please have a roll call
Mr. Annunziata,
here.
Mr. Semaglia.
Here.
Mrs. Coughlin. Here. Mrs. Buchner. Here. Mrs. Mitchell. Here. Mr. O'Donnell.
Here.
Ms. Pellet. Here. Mr. Sweeney. Muted.
Here.
Mr. Zimmerman.
Here.
Okay, thank you. Will you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Ms. Lindsay, can we please have a reading of the meeting notice?
New Jersey Open Public Meetings Law was enacted to ensure the right of the public to have advance notice of and to attend the meetings of public bodies of which any business affecting their interest is discussed or acted upon. In accordance with the provisions of the Act, Vernon Township Board of Education has caused notice of this meeting to be published, and adequate notice has been provided, and notice of this meeting has been properly posted in accordance with the New Jersey Open Public Meetings Law.
Thank you. Item 2, it's recommended that the board enter closed session for purposes of discussing personnel matters. Action may be taken. Can we please have a motion?
Motion.
Motion by Mr. O'Donnell, second.
Second.
Second by Ms. Pellet. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we are in close. We're going to go down the hall, right? Okay, it's recommended that the board return to public session. Have a motion to enter open session. Motion by Ms. Lehner, second. Second by Ms. Pellet. All in favor? Okay, we are in open session. Item D is public participation, and the first public participation is limited to items on the work session agenda or any student comments. Please just take note of the statement that is listed on our agenda. If you have public comments, we'll begin with those who are attending here in person. Please come up to the podium and you will have 5 minutes. Please share your name and part of town.
Difficulty here. Hi,
Hi.
I'm Natalie Bucieri. Do you want me to sign that sign-in sheet like you usually do?
Just, if it's not up there, then no.
No? No, I don't see it. Okay.
Yeah, Natalie, could you just leave the mask on? The microphone will still pick you up.
You know, I do have a problem with that because when Josh Gottheimer was here and you guys did all that press conference, every time someone comes to the microphone, they took off their mask to speak.
We actually asked them not to do that, but they did it anyway.
But Karen did it, and I think Justin did it too. I watched you.
We're under executive order right now.
You were under executive order then too.
Mhm.
I'll put it on, but it kind of, I think it highlights the how these rules don't make sense. Okay, you know, I'm coming before you about the mask mandate again. Yes, the governor issued an executive order mandating masks in schools. Even though the curve is flattened, even though children are not being hospitalized, children are not dying from COVID. I don't know why the mask mandate was issued just for schools, not for our whole state. Again, doesn't really make sense to me. You'll see a student in Walmart maybe, or at a restaurant, or doing a sporting event or dance or something, and they won't have to be masked, but in school they will. It seems arbitrary. It doesn't seem to make sense. And I know you didn't make the rule, but it doesn't make sense. You are charged with making sure that the students in our district are educated to the best of our district's ability. And you are charged, and we talk about it a lot, or you've talked about it a lot, social and emotional health. Masks are hurting children. And I don't think many people will disagree that it's difficult. Some people will say they don't complain. Well, kids don't always complain. Kids get abused and they don't complain. I mean, that's common. So just because the kid's not complaining or just because they're compliant doesn't mean it's not hurting them. I'm asking you to speak out on behalf of the students and the staff. Ask the governor to rescind the mask mandate and allow masks to be optional. Other districts have done it. You would not be standing alone. Manasquan, Berkeley, Stafford, Wall Township, Central Regional, Hapakong, Barnegat, Middletown. I believe Sussex Wantage will be talking about it if they haven't yet. I don't pay attention to their board meetings. Lafayette, I believe, will be talking about it, and I know Sparta has been having conversations. In addition, West Milford has issued a resolution against mask mandates, West Milford Town Council. They don't have any say in a school board, I get that. But I guess they felt strongly enough that they, as elected officials, they needed to speak up. And I'm glad that they did. And I hope more elected officials do that. It's important. Children have very little risk from COVID. You can look up this information and I'll send it to you. Over this 20-month time period of COVID, about, let me just look at the last date, was August 11th. 423 children died in our country from COVID. They all had comorbidities. So within 20 months, 423 children died from COVID. That's sad. No loss of life I would take cavalierly or lightly. During the 2018 and 2019 flu season, 477 children died. They probably had comorbidities too. More children died during one flu season than 20 months of COVID, but we never masked our kids. We all went to school, teachers went to school, staff went to school, and we did not have a mask. What's the difference there? I don't know. Honestly, I don't know. It boggles my mind. I talk about it a lot. I'm sure everybody talks about it a lot. But what's the difference? Why weren't we masking when 477 kids died in the 2018 and 2019 flu season? What warrants a mask now? Are we going to mask every flu season? I don't know. So these are things to think about. I'm asking you to think about them and consider. As a board, if you were willing to write a letter as a board, as the administration, that would be great. If you can't get consensus on that, individual board members could do that too. Just because you're elected to a board does not mean that you check your individual thoughts or rights at the door. You can advocate for the students to be mask optional. Parents can choose to wear a mask for their child. That should be their right. Masks cause medical issues, sores, dental issues, speech issues. I just read an article, mouth breathing. A lot of kids mouth breathe a lot because of the mask, right? When they're young, it can affect their palate, their whole face can look different if they do that for too long. You're talking 6 hours a day. And if they do after school activities, that's a significant amount of time. Causes anxiety, depression, social isolation, all of it. You know all of that. I'm asking you to consider that. Thank you.
Thank you. Do other members of the public who are here in person want to speak to items on the agenda or other business?
Hi. So this is my first time presenting.
I'm sorry. A name and address, I'm sorry.
Oh, that's okay. That's what I was about to ask. I'm just Sarah Werner. I live at 513 Retreat Drive in Highland Lakes, New Jersey. Thank you very much for what you do. First off, I am slowly getting more involved in my community now that I have the time. I didn't plan on coming to talk today, but I feel I should. I have 2 children who go to this school. One cannot be vaccinated. I talked to her about it today. I asked her, are there kids in your class? Are they complaining about the mask? Are they having problems? No, not really. Besides, we go out for 15 minutes during recess every day, so we don't wear it straight. I asked, well, what about in the hallways? What about your friends? They're on these group chats. It's very cute. My daughter is going into 5th grade. I feel more and more the adults are having more of an issue with this than the children are, and how you behave matters. I'm following the CDC and the way our governors, our leadership is as well. The CDC spends billions of dollars, thousands of scientists to do this one thing, their science, what they're checking on, the Centers for Disease Control. We should keep the masks on. I think we should keep masks on during flu season too. You're absolutely right. They had over 400 kids who died the last flu season. Do you know how many kids died this past flu season? None. I don't think that was a coincidence. I think the masks work. And even if they don't work as much as we think they do, what's the harm? My daughter is too young to be vaccinated. I need your help to make sure that she survives the season. We don't bring peanut butter into school anymore, right? Peanut butter is such an easy way and inexpensive way to feed your child. But I can't bring that in because there are some children who can get sick or die. I do that for our community. I understand this. To me, this isn't a political issue. I'm not interested in your politics. I'm interested in surviving this, and the only way we can do this is together. I have children in this school. I understand, and I agree. If you have opinions either way, that you shouldn't be quieted because you're on this board, but you do represent all of this, all of us in that. I too can definitely send articles about this and about that, but I'm not a scientist. I'm a parent, and I need for you to do what's best for my child. I go by what the state says. I go by what the CDC says, because the governors, politicians, I don't know what their motives are, but I know with the CDC that this is who we trust. Science is not the same as truth. It's ever changing. If something changes, good, that means they focused enough on it, for better or for worse. I wear a mask 7 hours a day, inside, outside. When I'm in an enclosure with people I don't know, I want a mask on. I wear a mask, and for my kids. I'm not going to ask you if you've been vaccinated. That's your personal medical history. But I don't trust that you did get vaccinated or are not vaccinated. So please wear a mask when you're around people you don't know. For me, it's very simple. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Are there others who'd like to comment that are here in person?
It's other business too, right, that we can? speak
No
about, or
other-
Just what's on the agenda.
Just
right now?
agenda items. at
Oh,
this
okay.
time. Hi. Step up to the podium.
How's everybody doing? My name's Ed Charfella. I own United Martial Arts Centers here in Vernon. We just opened up, super excited about it. Please send me back to my chair if I'm incorrect, but is the issue of the late dismissals on the table for the agenda today?
Yes.
School start times is on the agenda, yes.
Fantastic.
Can I have an address? I'm sorry.
Or just part of
Oh.
town.
I'm sorry?
Part of town that you are from? I'm sorry, I have your name. I need your address.
Oh,
also. I'm sorry.
what is the address of?
It-
Just the part of town.
It's where Smokies is.
Okay.
Yeah.
You can revert it.
Terribly sorry. No, I believe it or not, I did grow up all around here. You know, I grew up in Warwick, so many of my friends are from Vernon, and a lot of my family members still live here. I'm very excited to have a business in this town. And I've been talking to a lot of the parents that are students at my center that have children that go to all of your schools. And a lot of what we are known for at UMAC is our aftercare childcare. It is a fantastic program. It is an award-winning program, and it is a safe program. So we actually have Vernon dropping off the children to our school this year. So that's pretty cool. Normally our buses would go out and pick them up. I'm not hearing myself anymore. Oh, am I just very loud? Sorry. So normally we would go pick them up, and now we are actually able, and we worked it out with the Vernon School District that the district buses will drive the children from any Vernon schools to our location. We have the capacity to fit 45 children in that building. It is a pretty large area in space, and with our rotating curriculum, we are able to safely do that. I wanted to just let everybody know, I know a big concern was, and from a lot of the parents that I've talked to, that they're having issues with their after-school activities because of the late dismissal times and so forth. And I just wanted to let everyone know that UMAC's here, and we have a fantastic program that you can sign up for, where the kids come to our center. They have help with their homework. They have an educational block that focuses on self-control, discipline, respect, all the great values that you'd want in your household. And they get exercise, an awesome after-school activity. So I just wanted to say hi to everybody. Very, very happy to be a part of this community, and I hope to be an active member. So thank you so much for your time. And if anybody has any questions, they can give us a call or check us out on Facebook. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Welcome to Vernon.
Thank you.
Does anybody who's in person have anything on the agenda that they would like to speak to? Okay, so we're gonna, with that, go over to the live stream to see if anybody would like to be admitted to the meeting. If you'd like to be admitted, please raise your hand. Okay, great. So we'll just do those one at a time.
Hi, should I go? Can
Yes,
you
please.
hear me? Okay, my name's Amanda Rieker, and I am from the Glenwood side of Vernon.
Okay,
Um,
thank you.
So I wanted to first start by thanking you guys again for not going against the mandate. I think that actually shows a lot of respect on the part of all of you, regardless of your own personal opinions, which we know everyone has their own personal opinions on this matter, that you are collectively going with the mandate and not fighting back against it. So I did want to thank you for that. I wanted to mention that in regards to wearing a mask, before I talk about a little bit about the students, I'm currently in chemotherapy. I wear a mask for up to 7 hours, sometimes during chemotherapy, as it's required inside Memorial Sloan Kettering. And with that, with chemo, if you've ever gone through it or know anyone that has gone through it, your ability to breathe is already lowered a lot. My cell counts are pretty low, and therefore my breathing, I have some breathing issues just getting around. I can wear a mask with no problem. And the majority of people can. The fact is that those that cannot wear a mask, including children, generally have very severe health issues to begin with. Most of the students, as someone else mentioned, I believe her name was Sarah, do have breaks throughout the day where they can take the mask off. A lot of people that are sick don't get that option when they're visiting their doctors or they're spending hours in the hospital. On top
I'm sorry, it
of
sounds
that,
like
I would
you-
like to
you
also
cut out.
reiterate that respecting something like the no nut policy, and you're also respecting the community. The fact is that wearing a mask is even more important, as kids can be carriers and take something home to their family members that may also be immunocompromised or maybe not even vaccinated at this point, because some people aren't doing that. The actual facts are kids are catching COVID more and more these days. We see the numbers, we see the news reports, we see what's happening out there. The states that have very lax rules regarding COVID are filling up in pediatric centers. As the other woman mentioned, about 423 children have died from COVID, and there have been a bunch more recently if you look at the data. With that, there was a girl in Mississippi who was 13 with no underlying conditions that passed away today, or yesterday it might have been. It was in the news today. And that is sad. And I know the other woman said that was sad too, but the fact is that they then go on and say, but let's just unmask anyway. And that's not right. And the fact is children are dying and people don't want them to wear masks. They can't vaccinate. They don't want them to wear masks. And I don't understand this. It is extremely callous to look at a number of 423 kids, which will probably hit 500 by the end of this year due to the uptick of deaths in children right now, and say that, oh, but anyway, let's just not wear masks. That is so callous. So again, I do thank you for following the mandate, for protecting our students and our staff especially, and their families at home that they can carry it to. And as for children and the flu, kids get over the flu within like 2-3 weeks. The ones that pass away, yes, usually are sicker, as she mentioned. The fact is COVID and masks, COVID has underlying health conditions that will continue for months. We are seeing people that are sick for months, even if they don't pass away. We have no idea what's going to happen within the next few years if they're still going to have issues from COVID. So just wear a freaking mask. I mean, it's not the end of the world. And again, I just want to thank you guys. And I'm sorry, I'm on some medications from the chemo. I'm a little nervous. But again, thank you. And I appreciate all that you are doing for our students.
Thank you. If there's others who'd like to be admitted from the live stream, please raise your hand and we'll admit you now. Please share your name and part of town.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, hi. My name is Suhene Guzman. I am from the Sun Valley area of Vernon. And I want to thank you all for your time, first of all. I do have a few things that I want to speak about regarding the mask mandate as well. My mom has been a cancer patient for 26 years. And last year I kept my daughter home. I kept her virtually because I did not agree with the mask mandate. I didn't feel that was safe for her. But of course, I also had to be very aware of taking care of my mom and, you know, obviously not risking her to get any issues at home. So I just kept my daughter home. But here's my issue with this whole mask situation. And I also have studies here that I can also send to show why the masks are not a good option for children. But what I'm going to say is, I would like anybody here to please tell me what the difference is when they lifted the mask mandate in June and I had my daughter go to school for the last couple of weeks of school. And now we're going to go in September and now they're going to say you have to wear a mask. The kids didn't get COVID in June. So what is the point now of having to wear masks? I do not agree with that. So I was just looking at a reading about, hold on one second. I just wrote these notes. I'm sorry. There were a couple of studies that have been done in different countries. Okay, so I have one that was done in Ireland. And these research that they did, they found that mask in children in the classroom is not a legitimate medical precaution. It is child abuse. Masks can exacerbate anxiety and breathing difficulty. They can impair the development of human communication and language skills for young children. They also contribute to high levels of carbon dioxide in the human body, especially in children. And it also can become a breeding ground for dangerous bacteria. It also may affect facial development. We are seeing that kids are really not getting COVID in high levels as adults. Obviously, we want to protect our children. We do not want our kids to be, to get sick. But the reality is kids are not really contracting COVID. So all of a sudden, 400 and something, I think the number that Natalie said was all COVID. What happened to the flu? So the flu just disappeared? So everything is not COVID. The inventor of the PCR test specifically said those tests were not made to diagnose COVID. If people don't know about that, he wrote a book. You can read it. It's not made to diagnose that. My daughter was crying yesterday. I want my child to be able to go back to school. She wants to interact with her friends. I did see a podcast recently of the superintendent that was speaking about social distance and having all these precautions wearing the mask. But then we get 350,000, I think, that's coming into the school district so that they can have after school activities. And then the other person that was with her on the podcast, I think McKay said that they're going to be doing these activities for after school so that kids can be socially active. How does that make sense? If we're social distancing, but then we want them after school to be socially active, I do not understand. And I think that you as parents, as well as me, should be petitioning for no masks or the option for whoever to wear it. I completely understand the lady that is going through chemo. Like I said, my mom went through that for 26 years. Unfortunately, I just lost her. So this is a very, very touchy subject for me. I wish the best for everybody. But I think personally, for my child, I would like her to go back to school without having to wear a mask. And if they say, you know what, wear a mask for a little while and take it off, that's fine. But kids should be allowed to interact. That is how I feel about the situation. I mean, I have a little bit more information. I don't know if I'm over time, but we are not seeing, how is it in a sense that we are going under his orders, the governor's orders, right? But where are the studies that are showing that the masks actually work? I don't see it. Particles and stuff can go through it. I understand if somebody's sneezing and coughing right next to you, but if that's not the case, why then wasn't everybody afraid to cough when the flu was around or any other situation? So that is my take on it. I completely would appreciate if more parents would speak out on this, on the and request to have the masks be optional. I don't think that they should have to wear a mask. And one thing that I'm thinking of, and it's kind of extreme in a sense, I understand that we are here to, follow rules and everything. But if the governor would say, have your kids jump over a bridge, I don't think anybody here would do that because they're following orders. So thank you so much.
That's 5 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you for allowing me to speak.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, I can, oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, I think we have two of you. All right. Let's start with Martin, and then we'll go to the next public participant.
Okay, Martin Piringer, I live by the Ferguson Funeral Home. I just want to, again, on that mask thing, I just want to say, everybody has a study. I've studied things. I consider myself a reasonable, smart person. But as soon as humanity started to settle down and started to form societies that are not hunter-gatherers, we developed specialists. And as such, I, for example, have a heart condition. I discuss my heart condition with the heart doctor and not with my dentist or with Dr. McKay. He's also a doctor. So, so the point I'm making is We as a society have put institutions in place like the CDC, and we have put actions in place like peer review. Every scientist and every person can make a study, but your study doesn't count anything, and you can post it on the internet and Google will find it. But it doesn't count anything until it has been peer reviewed. So this is to safeguard against people who make mistakes because people make mistakes, people who are dishonest because people are dishonest, and people who just plainly wrong or make a study because they have an issue or they have some predetermined results they want to justify. So I suggest to everybody, and especially the board when making the decision, and in this case, the board can't make much a decision beyond writing to the governor. But even in that, I suggest strongly to look at our bodies like the CDC that we have put in place, at our experts, and go with the decisions and the recommendations of the experts have made. And there I have not found a lot of real immunologists who speak against the CDC. Thank you.
Thank you. I believe there was one other individual who raised their hand.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, hi, my name's Noreen Bredhold. I live in the Sussex part of town. I'm also here to talk about the mask mandate. And as others have said, I just want to start by thanking you for your time and energy. This is an extraordinarily difficult time for everyone. And, you know, I appreciate the work that you're doing. I have a 2.5-year-old, and I also have a 4-year-old who will be entering Vernon schools, not this year, but next year. I happen to be a public school teacher myself. And as a teacher and a parent, I take Board of Education elections very seriously. I voted for many of you because of the care, the concern, the commitment that you exhibit to our students. And it's that care and concern that I want to appeal to tonight. I'm asking you as a board to remain committed to your duty and obligation to uphold the governor's mask mandate. The Delta variant is 200% more transmissible. It results in up to 1,000 times more viral load than previous variants. It is not the same. On average, one person infects 6 to 10 other people. We only need to look at Texas, Florida, Alabama. You know, they're having a crisis. We can see that this isn't the common flu. It's not the common cold. It is different. Our children are at risk. Most children can't be vaccinated, and that includes the majority of our school districts. According to the AAP, only 39% of 16 to 17-year-olds and only 27% of 12 to 15-year-olds have been fully vaccinated. COVID-19 is a top 10 cause of death among adolescents in the United States. So yes, our children are at risk. As I said, I'm a teacher. I can't understate my desire to be in front of my students physically. My district remained remote for the majority of last year. It was hard. As a parent, I want my children to have every opportunity to go into school, to socialize, to learn with their peers, to interact with their teachers. Masks are a simple and easy precaution that we can take to allow our school doors to remain physically open, which is what we all want, while still protecting our kids. A collective approach is much more effective than an individualistic approach. We know this, and we owe that to our children who are too young to be vaccinated. They don't have a choice. It's our job to protect them. Please don't allow partisan politics to prevent you from doing your duty to protect our children. And once again, I just really want to thank you for your time and commitment. Take care. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other participants who are raising their hand virtually?
Hello.
Hi, the floor is yours.
Hi, this is Terry Griffin. I just wanted to say first of all, I'm a teacher at Lounsbury, 5th grade. And during all of last year with the mask, the students really didn't have a problem with them. They were fine. It was nice in June when we could take them off, but they were really didn't have an issue with it. And I feel our concern should be keeping the doors of the schools open and keeping the students live versus virtual, which personally, I didn't know anybody who liked that. So I think if wearing a mask does that, it's a no-brainer personally. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, was that everybody who had raised their hand?
No, there's still more.
Hi, I'm back again. I just had one more thing to comment.
Okay, so we have to first allow anybody who hasn't had an opportunity to comment first.
Okay, no worries.
Comment before we go to anybody again who has already used their 5 minutes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Was that all of the public comments? Yes. Okay, so you may comment.
Thank you so much. I will be brief. Now, one more thing I would like to suggest, if possible, if there is no option to remove the mask mandate, I would like to have some petition or something sent to the governor. I'm also signing a petition for that, but I would like the option of having a virtual, virtual studies for the kids that are not able to go back to school wearing the mask. So just wanted to state that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Finally, I would like to go to Ms. Linsky. Were the comments that you received over email related to agenda items? Okay. So if you'd like to go ahead and read those, and I'll keep the timer in case any of them are lengthier than 5 minutes.
Hi, I am Susan Berkeley, and I just moved to Highland Lakes from Maplewood, New Jersey. I'm slowly learning about local issues and getting involved, and was very surprised to see the early high school start time here. The Maplewood South Orange School District made a change not long ago from a 7:30 start to a 7:55 start, starting a full hour later than the high school here. Research actually shows that 8:30 or later is the best. I hope this community will also consider a later start time, as it has been proven to be better for kids and is recommended by public health experts. Even a shift of 15-30 minutes would be meaningful. Thank you to the board and the superintendent for your consideration. Susan. To whom it may concern, my name is Elizabeth Sassy. I am a pediatric nurse practitioner. I'm writing to thank the district for moving to a later start time for our students. I have worked in schools for over 20 years and have done copious research on the benefits of later start times for students. Often students are getting on their buses at 6:15, 6:30 a.m. and unable to get to bed until after 10 p.m. These early start times have negative impact on academic and social emotional success, as well as physical health. After the stress of the last 2 school years, which has resulted in higher rates of depression and anxiety among students, any steps that can be taken to improve the daily lives of students should be applauded. Moving Vernon's start time by 15 minutes is such a step. While national guidelines suggest 8:30 a.m. as a start time, an incremental move like this is a step in the right direction for the health and well-being of our students. Thank you. Sincerely, Elizabeth Sassy. I'm a resident of Highland Lakes, and I'm writing to applaud the district on delaying the start times for our schools. There is robust research on the negative impact of early high school start times on the academic performance of students, as well as their overall health and well-being. Prior to this change, Vernon currently had the earliest high school start time in the county. While we will still be starting far earlier than the national average of 8 a.m., this change represents progress toward what should be a district goal, making improvements that help our kids. Studies of later start times have shown to reduce daytime sleepiness, depression, caffeine use, tardiness to class, and trouble staying awake during school. I don't need a study to tell me that, though. I'm a mom of 3 boys and I've experienced it all firsthand. Teenagers are not physiologically meant to be getting on buses at 6:30 a.m., period. And to those who argue that 15 minutes isn't enough to make a difference, it makes a huge difference to me. In the morning when you're trying to get 3 kids out of the door, every single minute counts. Thank you, Lisa Marcinelli, Highland Lakes. Hello, my name is Mackenzie Rivera. I am a sophomore at Vernon Township High School, and I'm emailing you to ask that next school year you change it back to the original starting time. I know that many students are arguing to have the time pushed back further, but there are many negatives to pushing it back further. Argument A, when schools get pushed back, working elementary student parents have to find a way to get their kids on the bus without being late to work. Argument B, sports. Coming from firsthand experience, balancing school and sports is hard enough as it is, but when I get home 15 minutes later at night from an away game and have an hour work of homework, I won't be in bed till almost 12 o'clock. You may say, oh, well, you have an extra 15 minutes of sleep, but I don't, because I have to get up and make sure that everything I need for that day is together, something I couldn't do the night before because I was too tired. Argument C is that many students have jobs that they have to get to, that they will arrive 15 minutes later too, because the business isn't going to change its hours because the person is arriving 15 minutes later. So in the long run, it will decrease teens' paychecks. Argument D is that people will say that extra sleep will help depression in teens, but the truth is that teens will look on it as a way to stay up 15 minutes later. So how about instead of pushing times back further, making things more difficult for students and parents, you work out a way to show students that going to bed at a good time and getting up at a good time will have better results. Thank you so much for being diligent in meeting the mask requirements. Our children depend on you for this, especially the little ones who don't have an approved vaccine. Ella McAdams, Highland Lakes, Vernon.
Was that all the comments?
No.
Oh. Taking a breath.
This one looks really long, guys.
It's a long one. It's the last one. Hello, Jessica Uxel from the Highland Lake section of Vernon. I would like to have the following read at today's meeting on the issue of unmasking our children. As a parent of a small child that will be taking on the big world this fall, I implore you to please help our little ones during these trying times. In my opinion, as well as the opinion of researchers and doctors, it is extremely important for these young people to be able to hear and speak clearly. They need to be able to understand the instructions from a voice that is not muffled. They are still learning to take cues from facial expressions as to how they should be conducting themselves in public. And especially for my little one who has articulation issues as it is, his teacher will struggle to understand him as it is. Adding a mask to these little faces poses a serious issue in all of these respects. Speech will be muffled and hard to understand. Faces will be dehumanized without facial expressions. And above all, for these littles, they struggle to keep them on correctly and not constantly touch their faces. The masks themselves become petri dishes of all sorts of germs. There is more harm done to children by these masks than the virus itself. They are not nearly at risk of death from the virus, nor is there sufficient data that suggests they are spreaders of the virus. I would like for you to read an article from the Wall Street Journal that was written by Marty Macri and H. Cody Meisner on 8/8/21. The article can be found at, gives an URL. In the interest of time, I have taken just a few points from the article to consider. The case against masks for children. It's abusive to force kids who struggle with them to sacrifice for the sake of the unvaccinated adults. Do masks reduce COVID transmission in children? Believe it or not, we can find only a single retrospective study on the question, and its results were inconclusive. Yet 2 weeks ago, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention sternly decreed that 56 million US children and adolescents, vaccinated or not, should cover their faces regardless of the prevalence of infection in their community. Authorities many places took the cue to impose mandates in schools and elsewhere on a theory that masks can't do any harm. That isn't true. Some children are fine wearing a mask, but others struggle. Those who have myopia can have difficulty seeing because the mask fogs their glasses. This has long been a problem for medical students in an operating room. Masks can cause severe acne and other skin problems. The discomfort of a mask detracts some children from learning. By increasing airway resistance during exhalation, masks can lead to the increased levels of carbon dioxide in the blood. And masks can be vectors for pathogens if they become moist or are used for too long. In March, Ireland's Department of Health announced that it won't require masks in schools because they may exacerbate anxiety or breathing difficulties for some students. Some children compensate for such difficulties by breathing through their mouths. Chronic and prolonged mouth breathing can alter facial development. It is well documented that children who mouth breathe because adenoids block their nasal airways can develop a mouth deformity and elongated face. The possible psychological harm of widespread masking is an even greater worry. Facial expressions are integral to human connection, particularly for young children who are learning how to signal fear, confusion, and happiness. Covering a child's face mutes these nonverbal forms of communication and can result in robotic and emotionless interactions, anxiety, and depression. Seeing people speak is a building block of phonetic development. It is especially important for children with disabilities such as hearing impairment. We have been encouraging Americans to wear masks since the beginning of the pandemic, but special attention should be paid to the many children who struggle with masks. Public health officials claim to base their decisions and guidance on science, but there's no science behind mask mandates for children. A new research study by one of us, Dr. Mark Carey, and his Johns Hopkins colleagues found that of the $42 billion the National Institute of Health spent on research last year, less than 2% went to COVID clinical research, and not a single grant was dedicated to studying masks in children. Any child who wants to wear a mask should be free to do so, but forcing them to make personal health and developmental.
Okay, that's 5 minutes. Thank you. Was that the last email comment?
Yes.
Okay. So with that, then we will close it to the public at this time. And we will go to item E, which is the review of the public meeting agenda. Thank you for everyone who commented publicly, whether you were in person on Zoom or sent us an email. So item E is the review of the public meeting agenda. Board members, you should have that in your packets available to you. Was that in the packets this week? It was. Okay. I didn't see it when I went through it.
It's all the way towards the back.
Okay. No, I can review the agenda after this meeting, and if I have questions, I'll ask. Thank you. Are there any questions on the agenda for next week? There's a long list of approvals for personnel, so if anybody has any questions on those, please forward those to the superintendent prior to the meeting. That would probably be the best way to get any questions answered. Any other questions or comments? Okay. Item F is correspondence.
Please note correspondence 1 through 10 as noted.
I would like to personally thank some of the people who are resigning and retiring. Particularly, I'd like to thank Leah Hadeland for her years of service, Barb Rodriguez for her years of service, and Lou Stigler, who has painted every wall in our buildings. Thank you to everyone for their time in Vernon. Feels like family, and when family leaves, sometimes it's hard. So thank you to those folks.
Absolutely. Item G, Mr. Vino.
Item 1 is harassment, intimidation, and bullying, random drug testing, and school safety report. It's for the information of the board. Should be attachment work session 1.
Okay.
Nothing we can discuss publicly.
Item 2.
Item 2 are district and board goals for the previous year, 2020, 2021. And then, of course, followed by the superintendent goals for the upcoming school year. Mr. Nunziata, do you remember the board feel a need to review the district and board goals from the prior year at all? It's placed on the agenda for purposes of discussion should the board have it. I believe the prior year's goals were forwarded to each member.
Correct.
Just to review prior to having a forward discussion.
No, so I'll answer for myself and then I'll go to the board. I think we've had some time to review the goals from last year and read over them. But we do need to talk about our goals for the upcoming school year. Is everybody comfortable with having that conversation at this point?
Yes.
Okay.
So are you going to workshop through the district goals, board goals for this year?
Yes. The board goal, the district goals and the board goals are in our packets. In the past, I sent a memo out to the board about this. In the past, the district goals, which are developed based upon the mission statement of the board, which is on our public meeting agendas, haven't changed from year to year all that much because they're bigger picture items. For example, District Goal 1 is to foster a safe and inclusive learning environment supported at every level from classroom to community where every student can be their authentic best. The board goals underneath those that drive that district goal, those are the things that we have modified from year to year because many of them have shorter time spans or fall off the radar depending on changing circumstances. So we should begin by going through these with District Goal 1 and see if goals should be removed or added based upon those goals. If board members want to add district goals in addition to the ones that we've used in prior years, please also share that. This is a document that should change from year to year and should drive the decision-making of the board. So it should be an evolving document. District Goal 1, I just read what the district goal is on fostering a safe and inclusive learning environment. The first activity under that was to operate the water treatment pilot at Rolling Hills and Lounsbury Hollow. This is something that the Buildings and Grounds Committee recently reviewed.
Yes.
And that the board has followed up on continuously as we.
We do need to add Walnut Ridge to that because we're working on that as well.
Okay.
With regard to the water. So if we could just add Walnut Ridge to those items.
Do we want to continue to have this listed as an activity or goal
Yes.
on an ongoing basis?
Yes. Absolutely.
Everybody good with that?
Isn't it a policy now for the testing of the water?
It is now a board policy, correct?
Yes. Isn't it?
I think having it as a goal, though, just adds a little bit more focus to it. So I'd really like to leave it there from a buildings and grounds perspective.
We did add the program to another building this year, which was also one of the goals for the board. Do we think that there could be a need to expand that program to other buildings, or were those the 3 buildings that had the largest need?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't see any other buildings needing the orthophosphate.
Okay, so we'll just continue to test the water then regularly. And
We'll take C off.
okay. Any other questions on that item? Okay. The second goal or activity was safety to proactively address safety needs across the district footprint. And that was driven by monthly site tours by the Buildings and Grounds Committee. That's something that your committee did regularly.
I think that we should continue to do that. We were lucky enough to have our architect do a walkthrough with us just on the 3rd of August. We went to every single building. I thank the Buildings and Grounds Committee for joining me and going through that because it was a 6-hour day. But we uncovered and looked at a lot of items to identify, and we will get a full report back from our architect. But it was very comprehensive, and I just appreciate everybody's time because it really shed a lot of light on that. Also, each building principal did identify items in each school. So we will be discussing that at length a little bit later in the future.
We'll be developing a long-range facilities plan, right? So I think that having that listed as an indicator of success under this goal for the administration and the committee to work together to develop a long-range facilities plan would be a measurable measure of success for that. Any other questions or comments on this?
So we're going to add that as B.
Yes.
And in that, are we going to take all the stuff that we've uncovered and prioritize it?
That's part of the long-range
is,
facilities
okay.
plan.
It is, yeah. And I believe that they will do a presentation towards the end of their study, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, so they were an amazing group. I can't tell you how impressed we were. Right, Ray, how did you feel? Yeah,
They were impressive, different people, but they knew what to look for.
yeah.
Besides what we pointed out with the principals, they were looking at all the stuff.
So I was very, very impressed by that. And, we've been doing the tours now for about 1.5 years now, but to have an architect and other members of different professions with us was really a very big benefit. So I thank Teresa for bringing that to us.
We add something to, for me, doing the monitoring and making a plan is great. But I don't think that's something we can grade ourselves on success, because that's just knowing what the problems are. Even if we took that plan and we divvied it up and said, this is 30% of the plan will be accomplished this year, or something like that, some kind of measurable goal.
Well, there's
I would like
there's a
to-
funding piece to that. So we have to be, conscious
The
of
budget,
the
yeah.
funding
Okay.
piece to that. So I would caution us in making a goal, because we might not have those funds. So then did we fail at that goal? If we could identify them and work towards them, but I don't know if I would want to quantify like 30% or what have you,
To back up Charlie, I do agree. I mean, one of my biggest gripes between the board goals, the superintendent's goals, none of them have been quantitative. Like there's essentially almost nothing measurable. So I understand in that example, but I do agree with you that in some regard, just to give like in the spring, when we were supposed to go around the table and each chairperson share what they did, there's nothing that we can tangibly come forward and say, we accomplished this by doing, this. It was just more of a qualitative type of thing. So it was more difficult. So I agree, any place that we can put, but I understand your point with the finance, but something that we can put something to have
Yeah.
measurable, that would be really helpful, just even as chair people and as the members to be able to come back and see how we can hone in better on.
Well, I mean, we did accomplish as far as like maintenance issues that, that's, you had done the tours with me last year. And
Right.
we identified, and then the maintenance issues that we could rectify right then, we had them put on and they were completed. So we do have that. I just don't know what type of measure you would want to put on that.
I agree with Kelly because we haven't developed the plan yet. If the architect had developed our long-range facilities plan and we were able to say, these are the projects that we have identified that we need to work on, and this is what the cost of those would be, which at this point next year we'll have been able to do, then we could specifically say, this year we want to accomplish projects A, B, and C. But until we have done that and looked at what the cost would be, I don't know how we could at this stage target what we're gonna do.
So if we set it for next year, we'll set the plan and then next year we can make it quantitative.
I think that makes the
Yeah.
most sense, yes.
So this year, I think that we'll just focus on having that plan and getting that together and identifying. And then we will be able to,
Yeah,
be able to
this time next
quantify
year, we'll be
everything.
able to identify the priorities and how we're going to tackle them and in what order.
Yeah.
So two things. First, what is the target date for finishing this long-range plan?
That's a good question.
I
Okay,
believe they said they should be done around October.
around October?
Yep.
Okay,
Yeah.
so October of this year will be the target date.
Yep.
Okay.
How
All
about November 1st?
Yeah, why don't we
right,
say
November
that?
1st,
Yeah.
whatever, but
We'll get through
a
holiday.
goal without a date is only a dream.
So you want to put the November 1st date on there, Martin?
Sure.
Okay.
And does the long-range plan include a section for metrics, which is what we're all talking about here? So while you're doing the long-range plan, you should be thinking about metrics for measuring that moving forward. And that should be part of your long-range plan.
Metrics as far as cost?
Measurements of what you're doing to achieve those goals.
That, it really depends on funding, like
Yeah.
there isn't a way to do that if we don't have money going into capital or.
I know. Are you talking in general? I was speaking in general, but
I'm
are you
talking like,
talking
in general, you
specifically?
have all these things on your
I
long-range
think-
plan.
Yeah, we're talking in general.
What
You
are
have
your
to have a
metrics
plan
gonna be for
first.
success? If you have no money, rip up the long-range plan, throw it away. Doesn't make a difference.
No, you can
Okay, I
like,
mean, that's what
when
you're saying.
through budgeting, you could, possibly accomplish some of it. If you have money going into capital reserve, which I think we've talked about and approved, then you can earmark what will go to what project. No one knows what future funding will be, and this is a 5-year plan. So we might have,
But a metric could be how much funding you're getting, or a metric could be, we're looking at trying to get this much funding from here. Whether you've accomplished that or not, that's a metric. I'm talking about metrics that measure what you're doing. Okay, a sales department, they measure monthly sales to get to a goal.
yes.
I'm just
that's-
saying that when you do the long-range plan, you should be thinking about the metrics that you're going to use to measure that plan. So it should all be one plan with the metrics included.
Oh, in a perfect world, yeah, it should be. I just, like we have to see the priorities first and see what the cost is on that. I mean, we looked at Glen Meadow at the bridge there. It's going to be an enormous amount of money.
Granted, I'm talking about the completed long-range plan.
So-
Here's my long-range plan. And in that long-range plan should be a section for metrics where you'll measure as you move forward, because a long-range plan takes a long time. Okay, and there should be things within that measure whether or not you're on goal.
It's not a goal, though. It's a plan. Like it's a plan of what needs, what could be done. There's more to it than just, besides the HVAC windows, it's also educational spaces, like identifying our needs. Our funding might not match our needs. So we're going to prioritize what are the top needs. Here's our funding, and then match them together.
Right, but
But
then
if you had
there's
$2 and you were going to spend $2, there must be a metric.
well, there
in
is
place
there like
that says,
just
"I
for
spent those
example.
$2 like this, and here's
Just
how I
like,
did it.
just for
effectively."
example, we have the maker space in the high school. So we looked at that space and what are we going to do with that space? So that will be on that plan. Now, that's something that would be attainable because we wouldn't need a whole heck of a lot of funding to make that a different type of space. So we could do something like that. But when I'm talking about the bridge over at Glen Meadow or the windows in the high school and other various schools, that there's going to be a tie-in to funding for that.
Granted, I understand that, but again, metrics tell you where you're going, what you're doing, and how you've done.
I 100% agree with you.
So I just would like to see that part of the long-range plan instead of just getting a long-range plan with, here's a long-range plan. Well, great. How are we going to measure its success
What
moving
would,
forward?
what would you envision, like an example of that type of metric being on a facilities plan?
I would have to take a look at the facilities plan in order to do that, in order to come up with that, you know,
I'm just trying to fully understand your train of thought.
Well, I mean, it's just a measurement of how you're succeeding. Of what measurements would you use to say whether or not the job's getting done? Okay, so if you're not measuring yourself against anything, how can your long-range plan be successful?
Well, there are going to be attainable goals from that plan that we can do. There's like a heat issue in the secretarial area of Lounsbury. So that's something that I would hope our maintenance
Your
department would do
metric
that.
might be, we targeted to do this on this date, and we targeted to do this and this and this and this
Yeah,
on this date.
so that would
And our
definitely
percentage of
be a
success of
priority.
Getting stuff done on date is this. That's a metric that tells you whether or not you're properly, you've properly forecasted and things of that nature.
Yeah, so there are items that we can break down like that. So when we get that plan, we'll dissect that, and there are items that we can do. We would want to do that before the winter time so that our secretaries don't freeze. in there.
Ms. Linsky, you've worked with long-range facilities plans before, right?
Yeah.
Any
Do-
goals or
do they
timelines till we
typically-
see the plan?
Do they
know
typically
what we're
include
doing.
timelines? How does a school district long-range facilities plan really lay out?
They prioritize it. This is
So
what
they
should be
do.
done in year one. Then they escalate the costs for year two, year three.
Okay, so it does have figurative timelines.
Yes, but not necessarily attainable. If it's just attainable, then you are, you'd have all the funding in the world. If we got a windfall somehow, we could hit every single one. But without knowing what they are, we wouldn't know where to start. It's a plan to look at, to say, this is our need. How are we going to get there? We might not be able to get there if our funding is cut, like it's been cut. We might be able to pick the things that are priority and focus on those.
And they're also going to put in that plan that based on cost factors, like during COVID, you might want to hold off on XYZ because the supply chain is very difficult. But then, you might want to go over here. So there's going to be a lot of different factors there, but they are going to make sure that they explain all that to us and quantify that. So I'm really excited about this plan because there's going to be a lot of facets to it. But I don't want to speak too much to that and like set us up for disaster until we see the actual plan. But once we see that, I think that we should definitely all come back together
So
and chat about
So
it.
what I would say is, this is our document.
Yeah.
So we can actually amend that goal come November, and that could be listed here,
Yeah.
in November, target, what projects we're going to do first and what order we're going to do things in.
Yeah.
There's nothing that says we can't do that.
Excuse me. I was only going to mention, I understand what you're saying about metrics, and I think it's a really great way to measure how we're doing. Correct me if I'm wrong, Lee, LRFP is an assessment of our district, right? I mean, so the first part of the metrics, which is where you want to get to, is to have the long-range facility plan tell us what the needs are of the district. Then we, the board, have the opportunity to prioritize those items based on some of the recommendations from EI Associates, our architects, as well as safety. For example, the bridge at Glen Meadow might be a high priority need for us because it's a safety measure. And it's one of the things that we talk about, foster a safe and inclusive learning environment, right? The educational spaces, while myself or Dr. McKay might be overjoyed and thrilled at the idea of reimagining every media center, financially, we may not be able to achieve all of those visions, right? Not necessarily goals, but visions. So I think the metrics will start to evolve once we have the assessment and we analyze that assessment, compare it to the funding and how we want to allocate funding toward those projects so that we can then develop the metrics, like you say, Martin, to measure the progress of the overall plan, which really is multi-year. The LRFP is really just the first step, right?
Correct.
So
My point was the metrics should be included. However, I agree with you that they can't be really put in place until you have the plan.
Can we just make that,
So
so
item,
like by January, we come up with a target plan for this year, next year?
Mhm.
We
Yeah,
can
so-
definitely do that. Mhm.
So for C, we can do that. We can say modify this goal upon the completion of the long-range facilities plan and identify priority projects.
So we'll do that in January 2022.
By that point in time, we should also have the completed consolidated annual financial report from the auditors, and we will have determined what the balance in the capital reserve account will be, because we can finalize that deposit, which will also give us a better idea of what our current resources are that we're working with in the short term. Okay, so are we good on activity 2 or board goal 2?
Sorry, did you give a date for that, for C or no?
Yeah, it was January, just 2022.
January.
Okay. Item 3 was inclusive learning environment and community, and the continuation of the Student Life Committee to oversee the implementation of various programs and initiatives as necessary, taking into consideration the impact of COVID-19 on student life.
Yeah, so Student Life is going to meet on the 30th of August. That's going to be our planning meeting. We were supposed to have that in July, but we had a lot of people on vacation or what have you. So we're going to get together with the administrators and talk about our long-range plan for the school year on the 30th. So I don't really know how much we want to speak to that specifically until after that timeframe.
Okay. One of the first items there was the expansion of the LEAD program. Did that occur last year?
Yes, we have a lead program now.
Okay, so we can
Based
remove
on-
that item. And the timely HIB training for administrators.
Yes, that occurs annually.
That's annual training. Okay, so we'll continue to ensure that's happening. And then assessing the changing needs of students due to the impact of COVID-19.
Yeah, so I'd like to, I'd like to leave that. Unfortunately, we do have to leave that, right? Because now we're still having these issues. But then I would like to see more specifics underneath that.
Right.
Okay.
But I don't know that I could do that until after my meeting on the 30th.
Okay, we can come back to this in the September
Yeah.
work session. Okay, the second district goal is to drive student achievement and academic success across the wide range of needs within our student population to ensure the growth and development of the whole child. The first board goal and activity under that is curriculum, and that is to examine courses electives in the district, looking at emerging trends, budget, enrollment, staffing, curriculum needs, and state and federal requirements to determine the possible changes to offerings. During the budget season, we did make some changes to our stipends with which programs and clubs we are adding or removing
Yes,
based upon
absolutely.
student needs, and that's something we do every year. And should continue to do every year.
How do we solicit the parent and student input? How is that typically done?
Usually it's with surveys. The surveys come out of the schools. Oftentimes when we're course offerings, it's children vote with their feet, and they
Which courses
choose the classes. Of course, I'm particularly talking about the high school level, but also the middle school level. But there are times that courses are removed because we don't have enough interest in them. But we also have courses that have expanded because there's real interest in them. So there are classes in which, as you'll see next week, we're offering 6 periods to teachers because the class is very popular and that teacher may be one of the only couple of teachers that can teach that class. But it's because the program has become very popular.
Are we doing a survey? I mean, are we planning to do it?
Yeah, there, in each of the buildings, there have been folks that have been surveying. I can't speak to each one of the surveys. Oftentimes they're district folks who are doing graduate work and then do surveys of either teachers or staff members or parents. We haven't done a district-wide survey on courses and electives.
I think courses and electives is really particular to the high school and
Yeah,
a little
it
bit
is.
to the middle school. I mean, K-5, our children don't really get a choice.
But we do adjust, we do add, and we do delete based on changes in budget. I am very proud to say that most of our programs, even though there has been significant cuts the last 3 to 4 years from the state mandates, we have kept the programs.
Okay, do board members have any comments?
I'm wondering from a curriculum perspective, and this is something that we can discuss in a curriculum committee meeting,
Sure.
is one of the things that happens often with many seniors in high school, juniors and seniors, that unless they're taking AP level classes, they have to load up on electives. So there seems to be like a big discrepancy between either take an AP class or take an elective. Like there's not a lot of, let's say, what we call ACP, just like your basic college level classes. Is there any way to explore that discrepancy, like that big hole in the middle, so students junior or senior year maybe don't have to go either AP or elective?
Yeah, that's a terrific question. The piece that happens with seniors is the fact that if they get to that 3rd and 4th level in, say, history, or 3rd and 4th
Right.
level in science, or 3rd and 4th level in math, English, of course, is required, and phys ed is required. But once they get to those levels, if their sense of themselves is that they no longer want to take part in those classes, then they tend to move into electives. The way to change that dynamic would be to require a 3rd year of history, or a 3rd year or 4th year of science, or a 5th year of science, because we have them. And oftentimes, we don't want to do that only because we want them to be able to explore the field that they love. So I understand what you're saying about the AP,
Right.
because if they're going through the AP system, it's all 4 years and sometimes 5.
Right.
So yeah, there's no doubt
Yeah.
about it that it's very much that
And
their
it's
schedule's
also
regimented.
essentially, I mean, when you're getting to the AP level, you're essentially in a cohort system of sorts. So the
Precisely.
thing is, and I mean, when you're getting to that point, you should have a decent idea by junior, senior year. Is my interest engineering and math? Is my interest humanities? Like, you know, you have an idea, because none of us sitting at this table, as awesome as everybody in this room is, we are not all amazing at everything. We all have strengths and weaknesses.
Yes.
So therefore, I think that's something that we can start exploring, maybe not by requirement, but maybe just seeing if it's possible. And again, it's a goal. We can just look into it. Doesn't mean this has to be done.
This would be a
Just-
terrific discussion in
Yeah, that's what
curriculum,
I'm saying.
because the
If we
idea
can
simply
take
is,
this
yeah,
into curriculum, and then maybe just put it down as a goal. We can just explore.
right.
So we'll just use the
right.
word explore. We can leave it open. Explore, and I'm just going to use the term ACP. So that way we're not targeting that cohort of only APs, but we're also not going at, let's say, a standard. And that way, if a student wants to take, I don't know, because you're right, English is required, a history or a science that maybe is not at that level, then it's available to them instead of just loading up on all electives. Because there's such a disparity that I think we really have that hole in the middle that maybe we could try to meet some of our juniors and seniors needs and just take a look. So maybe explore that. And if it works out, great. And if it doesn't, we will know why it didn't work out.
I definitely agree with that, because it sounds like just because a student is eligible for AP, they may not want to take it for a variety of reasons.
Right.
And then they may want to still study some of those academic areas, but not at such intensity. It gives them the option to do that.
So can we combine the thought that Jen brought up and the thought that Teresa's bringing up? that, can we survey both our students and our teachers on, the current offerings of electives and the current offerings of course offerings and extracurriculars to really determine if we're missing any holes like that in a more formal way going into the budgeting and scheduling time of the next school year prior to that.
Yeah, so we could put that, that's a good idea, Jen. So we'll expand on the where am I?
We
The
can-
determining the student parent input, and then again, exploring that through that input just to see. And then that's why I like the word explore on this, because we can see if we have any holes
And
and then just take it from there.
yeah,
And
and
building on
ultimately,
what Dina said, oh, like, you're right, maybe because maybe a student really does want to concentrate on, let's say, engineering sciences. They still really love history, they still love something else, but not at that level because they may want to go in, but they still also want to take a history at college level.
And there's
But-
lots of reasons.
and that
why
makes
kids
sense,
don't
yeah,
take AP
yeah.
classes, so
Yeah,
even
I
if they're
agree.
eligible.
and when the administrators are in the spring determining how to develop the schedules for our schools and what individuals we're hiring, this is really important information to help make those decisions. We could have faculty members that think there's a lot of student interest in a subject area and that we have a course offering that would be a tremendous addition to the high school. But, haven't shared that interest with the administration and we should solicit that two-way communication.
And when the courses are offered, the other issue is the way the schedule is set up. So when a child takes their schedule, it's whether that course is available during the period of time that the person
They
has
want.
the free time.
Yeah,
So we
that's
cannot, all of these ideas are terrific. We just cannot underestimate the power of trying to
Single-
fit things into a child's schedule.
Right, well, and that's what happens when they go from middle school up. Unfortunately, the
Yes.
schedule
Right.
overrides. That's just the nature of the beast. So that's why if we just put explore, we can
Yep.
take the three of our ideas, bring them together, and
Sure.
then see if it works for the following
Good, and
year.
that's a terrific driver for the curriculum committee. I think that's great. Thank you for
And I
that
think that would
input.
fall under both